Okay, so this is Geotechnic. This is a new dual map that I've been making, kind of like, I guess, the second wave, quote unquote, of dual maps that I've kind of been working on. That I've kind of decided to put a lot more emphasis on just kind of simple geometry that is like easy to move around and easy to fight in, and it's kind of a lot more kind of like CPMA, a lot of it. Because I think that works better given that Open Fortress's movement kind of just plays like CPMA anyway. So there's kind of a lot more emphasis on making just kind of simply designed areas that are really clean and easy to move around. For this map, I kind of wanted to go for something that was like a lot slower than other maps, because I feel like with CPMA, and with Open Fortress, but more with CPMA, as much as I enjoy, like, the fast pace, I think just the fact that every map does play so fast, it makes them all feel quite, like, samey, I guess. It feels like a lot of them, there's not as much room for, like, thinking kind of tactically. So I wanted to kind of design something that was a bit more intensely tactical and kind of like thought out, kind of like you see in Quake Live with maps like Elder, and that kind of slow map with a lot of sightlines. So this was kind of my attempt at making a map that plays slower than the average Open Fortress map, and I think it went quite well. I think I've been decently successful in that, and people, it's a divisive map, but there are people that like it, and people say that they kind of appreciate like the change in pace from most maps, just like kind of how tactical it is, as opposed to just kind of pure solid execution, I guess. So, yeah. So, one thing I wanted to go over before I started kind of going over every area of the map in more detail was just a few of the kind of more general design decisions I made that maybe don't necessarily fit into kind of the description of a singular area, or that kind of I can group them together because it would take like 2 seconds to mention it. Just to kind of give a bit of a, I guess, just set up some of the main ideas that I kind of used for this map to make something with a pace like this map has. So one of the main things about this map is that it does not have a railgun. There's no railgun anywhere on the map, and I kind of we kind of used the Tommy gun as a replacement for the railgun. It's kind of like Quake Champions Corrupted Keep. How Corrupted Keep has the HMG, that, because Corrupted Keep has no rail, people use the HMG as a rail instead. This is kind of similar, you know, because it's like long range, but it deals decent damage. And it kind of, as it adds up, because of the fire rate, it adds up to being basically as much damage as the railgun does, if you take long enough. So, the lack of a railgun was one thing that I kind of wanted to go with for this map. There's a lot of kind of sightlines as well that I can get away with now because there's no railgun. Like, this is insane. It's probably something you could have in a map with a railgun, but it's a bit less egregious when there isn't one, and I think it kind of serves to make the map a bit faster, because there's a lot of long angles that a lot of people, I think, would not peek if the railgun was on this map, just because there would be too much risk of them getting headshot, and too much risk of them, just in general, taking 80 damage. So, you know, there's a few sightlines, so there's, like, one here, there is one here, one here, although this one's not as egregious, I would say. One here. There's a lot of, like, long sightlines on this map that I felt like I could get away with because there was no railgun. And that kind of leads into the second thing that I wanted to bring up, was that a lot of the chokes are quite long. You know, in a faster map, this would be just like a door. But on Geo, like, all of the chokes are these long, they're almost like corridors in a sense. They're like short corridors almost. These long kind of just stretches of tight space that are really easy to hit splash damage through, really easy to shoot splash damage around, and just kind of quite easy to deny. And there's a few doors as well that kind of serve to make the map a bit more difficult in some places to hit damage through. This left side is quite easy to bunker in, but I'll go over that later. Yeah, that was kind of one of the bigger inclusions as well on this map, was that I wanted to design kind of long chokes that make it so that it's difficult to push directly through them. So you can't just like go running right in, or like jumping right in and just not take any damage and get the kill. You can use these, and that's a big thing with the combination of long chokes and long sightlines as well. There's a lot of opportunities you have to hit damage through these, because you can see so far. So even though you can't push directly through, you can still stand on one end and shoot rockets to the other end, or shoot like the Tommy far away, or rockets far away, or, you know, nades. So there's a lot of opportunities to hit damage, even if it's difficult to get frags off of that. And you can kind of optimize like your positioning so that you're hitting damage as often as possible, and it's not a slogfest, where you kind of just, like, you never see the other player and they're always just looping around you, because it's quite easy to kind of see them through these doorways. Another decision I made, the map is quite small. Even though it's 4 rooms, it's just quite small. You can kind of hear where your opponent is at all times. You know, even in this room, I can hear exactly where my opponent is. I can just tell if I stop for a second and they're making noise, and I can just kind of chase onto them, or like position myself in a way that I am there before they are, which kind of helps to speed things up a bit and make it so that there's kind of frequent encounters, because you can anticipate where your opponent's going to be. You can position yourself in a way that you can open an engagement and hit a lot of damage on them, which I think kind of helps to make it a bit more of a 3D chess. Well, I say 3D chess, just make it a bit more of a kind of carefully thought out chess game, because just because those encounters are happening often, and you have to be able to prepare for them, and you have to be able to initiate them in a way that's like effective and is conducive, I guess, to getting frags. So that was one way that I kind of make things a bit faster. It helps a lot as well that a lot of the areas are just quite easy to get to. You know, I can go from this side to this side in not a lot of time, versus a larger map, which is quite good. There's also just kind of a lot of sightlines in a lot of different positions that make it so that it's really easy just to track where someone is. You know, if I'm up here, I can see both to the bottom down there and to this right side, and I can go not very far, and now I can see over here. On top of the fact that I can hear where my opponent is at all times, it's just really easy to kind of force an engagement where you have to hit damage, even if you don't necessarily chase for a frag. That type of thing can be really easy to come across. So, yeah. I think that about covers a lot of the general design decisions. Oh, no, wait. This rocket launcher down here, I think, is quite interesting as well. Kind of, because most duel maps have 2, just because the rocket launcher is such an integral part of taking fights, because, you know, it's so versatile. You can hit splash damage, you can hit damage directly, you can rocket jump, you know, there's a lot of things that you can do with it. So it ends up being that the rocket launcher is just really important. So because there's only one on this map, it means that the player without it is going to have a really difficult time engaging in fights. Just because there's no railgun, so there's not really a lot of good ways to hit long-range damage that you can push in with, like, LG over. Shut up, shut up, shut up. There's not a lot of kind of long-range engagements that you can take with the LG, and rail. And two, just because the actual position of the rocket is quite, like, disadvantageous as well. You know, it's all the way on this low ground. So, you know, if I'm up here and I have rockets, I can spam down here and, kind of stop them from taking it. In the future, once armor comes to Open Fortress, that kind of will come into play a bit more, that the player who is denying rockets won't be able to for so long, because they'll miss important pickups like, the red armor here, the yellow armor here. They basically have to, if they want to just deny rockets forever, they basically just have to constantly play in the room that has just Mega, so they'll just never have armor. You would be able to just continually whittle them away. So they have to rotate out of it, which would make it so that you have to kind of optimize when you're going for the rocket launcher for when they're not, like, looking at it. Also, the position of it. A player who is at a disadvantage, say they don't have rockets, they can pick it up, go up the jump pad, immediately they're in an advantageous position, and that completely changes how they interface with the map, how they kind of take fights and stuff. So there's a lot of kind of, it's quite a dynamic element of the map, I think, that that whether you take rockets or not and what you do after is just so highly kind of variable. And I think that kind of helps a lot to make it so that the map's a bit more, not fast-paced, but, like, there's more fights, and there's more opportunities to hit damage. So, that's kind of some of the general notes that I have on the map. Okay, so starting off with this middle area, I've already kind of gone on a bit about it, and maybe I should have just left that for now. But anyway, there's kind of a few major things about this middle area that that I wanted to kind of go for, I guess. And one part of that is that this is hands down just the most important part of the map to control. You have so many good things here. You have Mega, you have rockets, you have Tommy. You know, those are really good weapons on this map, so it makes it so that this is a very valuable position to be able to take. Especially since it's a good way, it's a good room for you to kind of just go anywhere from, because it's just connected to all four. You know, I've 2 doors on this side, 2 doors on this side, 2 doors on this side. I have a big drop down here with 2 holes. You know, you have so many options from here. So a lot of the time, players, I'm kind of intended for it to be that players have to control this room, most importantly, but then have to also find a way to control the armors, because even though Open Fortress doesn't have armors yet, when it does, that'll be a very big element of, obviously, how well you control the map. If you're not controlling the armors, then you're giving the other player an advantage. And it kind of makes it so that, yes, this is a good position to be in, but you don't want to rely on it super heavily. Even though there's so much good stuff here, and it's arguably the best position on the map. It's small, because I kind of wanted it to be that players on this high ground have a very good opportunity to hit damage on people taking Mega. Especially since this high ground is such a strong position, I drop down to take Mega. If I'm in control, suddenly now I'm at a disadvantage and they can spam down at me. That's kind of another thing that I was kind of going for with the way that I was making encounters, I guess, function. That if you're out of control, you know Mega's about to be up, and you know you can't steal it. You can... Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. You can kind of position yourself in a way that once Mega is up, if you have rockets, you can still pressure them, and that's like kind of quite an easy encounter for a player out of control even to take because no rail, so it's more difficult to punish. You know, I can shoot nades up here, but if you jump over them or if you're just faster than them, you can kind of just rush in, and you know, you hit one rocket, you hit two rockets, that's huge, that's massive, just because of the amount of stack that burns. So, yeah, it's quite an interesting dynamic, I think. The middle ground, I kind of wanted to make stealing it quite easy. So, you'll notice these rooms to the side, if I'm stood like here, someone on mid can't shoot me. If there's somebody on the high ground on mid, they're not going to be able to see me if I'm down here, which makes it somewhat easy for you to just do that. If you're to the side and you're at a disadvantage or whatever, it makes it quite easy to steal Mega. You kind of have to be careful about it though, because it is still quite risky, because they might hear you rocket jump, they might hear you just like jump normally, and then just like kind of hit you with a bunch of rockets.
Power activation imminent.
It's annoying. It's still pretty easy for you to get hit, so there's still some kind of risk and reward to that, but it's just generally a position that it is quite easy to steal Mega from, because it's all kind of one height level and you're quite protected as you go in. You're only really at risk of being shot for like a second, 2 seconds. So it's quite easy to just kind of rocket jump through and grab it. This lowest level, as I said before, this jump pad, you immediately have advantage over whoever's on Mega. There's something about this wall that is, like, occasionally it will just completely kill your movement, and I have no idea why. If you hold S against it, just for some reason, I don't know. The Source Engine is an enigma, but it's inconsistent, and I need to find a fix for that. But, it's whatever. It doesn't happen often. So there's that. These pills are a bit risky to grab. I don't think people tend to really grab them anyway, but it's a nice way to maintain a stack if you're on mid. That is also just kind of risky if someone stood here, because they can just shoot a rocket over here. This lower ground, I really like using lava and like toxic slime, because it means that I don't have to make areas feel empty while they are quite empty. Part of it is, again, simplicity. There's no point in me adding a shit ton of walls to this area, because that just blocks a lot of space that would be nice to have. And also, it's just really easy to design an area that's just a line with lava to the sides of it. So that's quite convenient. But I think, just the simplicity of that, the fact that the rocket launcher is not far from any entrance to it, you know, I can just jump here and steal rockets without necessarily being shot at, or without being hit. But there's still kind of, you still can kind of apply that pressure. I think is just quite an interesting dynamic around that bit, and I think it just makes it, again, it's a lot easier to navigate than if I were to make it different, which I think is something that is worth having in your maps and is something that should be valued. So, yeah, that's mid. So this is the room to the back of the map, kind of in a line with mid. Once Open Fortress gets armor, red armor, heavy armor, whatever the fuck you want to call it, will spawn right here. And this is another room that I kind of wanted to design in a way that facilitates hitting damage for people out of control. It's quite easy, if I'm in control, to drop down here and then just take this jump pad up. Especially because it makes you land directly on red. But because that platform is separate, because there's a lot of sightlines onto it, and because there's kind of a big gap, there's still quite a good opportunity to hit damage if you're stood here. So you can kind of, especially because LG is right here, and I actually initially this kind of big pillar wasn't here, but because I wanted LG to be able to get across the whole gap from a reasonable distance, I decided just to add the pillar there because it makes people not want to stand here, because obviously if you stand here, you get hit with a rocket, you can take a lot of damage. So I kind of made it so that LG could reach across the whole distance, and then had LG here, so that if I'm stood here, I can LG someone. If they're trying to jump at me, I can LG them, push them back, you know, that kind of thing. So, yeah, there's that. You kind of have to fall from this middle ground, which I don't know if I like that yet or not. But it's quicker than going from mid, so it's kind of like whatever. It's not super easy to access it from here, but I would imagine that if you're stood here and someone's like going to grab it from a different position anyway, then it's not likely you were going to get it. So, it should be fine. This lava on the low ground, again, I wanted to make it so that there wasn't a lot of space for people to stand, but I didn't want to have walls, so lava is just kind of the best way to do that, because it makes it so that, like, you have to get out as soon as you can, which is, I think, it's a bit more effective. It's a bit more of an effective way to use this space than it would be if there was like walls, or if there was just space to stand without taking damage. So I think that tiny bit kind of extending out is fine. Yeah, there's a lot of angles onto the where the red armor will spawn that kind of just make it so that somebody who's not playing red armor can quite easily affect someone who is. You know, these positions, these are a bit more for someone who's in control, because they're more likely to be playing on mid. You can shoot nades quite easily. You can shoot rockets quite easily. You know, it's, if you push forward enough. God, excuse me. If you push forward enough, you can really easily just hit a decent amount of damage on someone. That, again, there's more opportunities for encounters, just because of the sightlines. This area along here, this is kind of another example of an opportunity to hit damage that doesn't necessarily lead to a frag. You can use LG if someone's close to you, Tommy if someone's far away, and just kind of hit enough damage to somebody who's stood like here that you can really soften them up and kind of get ready for another fight, which I think is quite a good thing. Just this sightline without rail, it makes it so that there's an opportunity to hit damage, but not so much that like you just never go down here, which I think is quite good. Yeah, I think that's about everything for this back area. This side area is the less campy of the two, I would say. There's more sightlines onto it. There's less protection. It's easy to kind of sneak in and hit damage without necessarily being anticipated or giving enough time to be reacted to. So, yeah, there's a lot of opportunities to take fights, hit damage through here that there isn't as much of on the other side. Again, long sightline. From the other side, I can shoot onto nails. From here, I can shoot onto the health. From here, I can shoot onto this ammo. There's a lot of somewhat exposed positions that, like, if I'm camping in here, it's quite easy for me to take damage, which I think is quite good. This is a fight where a lot of, well, not a lot of, but there are some frags that happen in this room, just because it's enclosed and has sightlines into it, but it's not so enclosed that you can't push in. If I see someone over here, if I see someone over there from here, I can rocket jump in quite quickly. And especially if I'm really high stack and they're low stack, I can quite easily just catch them if I've been hitting damage well already. So it's difficult to run away from people in this room. Kind of on a similar note, this elevator, I have to fight the urge to say lift. This elevator, it makes it kind of difficult to get to this high ground here if you're on a low ground, especially in the middle of the fight, because if I'm right here, you know, it takes me a second to get up. So I can hit splash on someone, I can hit a nade, I can, you know, shoot them with bullets. There's a lot that I can do to somebody who's taking this lift. If they're not careful, because it's just kind of, it forces your movement to be really predictable, and it takes longer than using a jump pad. And there's also kind of less space to stand. So, yellow armor here, kind of just to force rotation a bit, and just to give players who are out of control something. You know, a player up here, you can see the yellow armor, but you have to like kind of sit at a weird angle, and you have to really focus on it, and so it makes it so that you can't really watch other parts of the map. So it's a bit easier to grab for a player who is out of control. There's nails here, just to have something that allows people who are out of control to kind of control entrances with. You know, I can shoot through here, and just a bit of health again. Just you know, if a player who's out of control has just won a fight, you know, it's just quite a nice thing to be able to fall back on it, and I think it makes it so that it's not more equal, but just so that you can prepare for the next fight a bit more easily, which I think is kind of an important thing when it comes to a slow map like this that is so much about like setting traps and being able to kind of anticipate other people's positions and stuff, is that you can kind of readjust your plan quite easily. So there's kind of a lot of room after a fight to get back up to like full health, you know, a decent stack. But overall, this room is kind of one of the less safe ones, just because of the amount that you can see into it and the amount of damage that you can hit on it and stuff. So, yeah. And finally, this other side room, once again, there's, this is a good room for a player out of control. This one, because it's quite easy to kind of bunker down in, so you can kind of, there's a lot more breathing room here. Because there's a lot of, like, tight chokes into it. You know, this one, I have to kind of go, it's a zigzag shape, and I kind of have to walk for an extended period of time in a room that is easy to watch, in order to push onto someone. So most people just prefer to kind of sit here and hit spam damage on people that are in there, and vice versa. There's grenades right here, and grenades, especially in a long room like this, are quite a good tool just for denying people who walk in. This area, not only is there a door here, it takes you into a long choke that can kill your speed. This is a bit more of just a flaw with the design of the map. This bit extending down, but I think it's fine. Most people don't bump into it when they're bee-hopping through. This is quite an easy spot to spam up if you hear the door open. You know, it's going to be kind of difficult to cross that without taking damage. And there's not really much health going in. You know, you have 2 pills here, but that's about it. There's not a lot for an attacker, because most of the resources are at the bottom here. There's 3 pills here that kind of just help if you're bunkering in here to kind of keep up a bit of a stack. And a yellow armor, again, keep up a stack. But just the fact that this room is difficult to push both in and out of makes it a bit of a double-edged sword, because there are kind of a lot of situations where if you trap yourself in here, if you try and kind of bunker down in here, you're going to be giving your opponent a lot of resources, because, I mean, you know, the easiest pickup to push onto is red, but I have to push through this door, and there's this big wall that makes it so that I can't even see what's going on. So if someone on here, or someone here, hears that door open, they're just going to immediately start spamming and get far away, or if you're low, they'll just push directly onto you. And there's the health that's kind of just against the wall that makes it so that it's a bit easier to kind of just play back, rather than being able to kind of refill on HP when you're, like, over here, when you're down here. You basically have to be on top of someone to be able to get health while fighting. So it's difficult to push through there. It's difficult to push through this because someone will hear you, it's quite a long choke, and it's really easy, again, to spam into it. Up here, again, it's a long choke, you're pushing through a doorway. There's only 2 pills here pushing in. So you can be up here without being in danger, but the moment you open that door, or the moment they hear you coming, they're just going to be stood here, outside the door, just ready to hit damage on you. So it's quite difficult to push out through. And especially since it leads to one of the best positions on the map, you know, you're going to have a really difficult time if you're trying to push onto somebody who's up here. So you can bunker in here, but you really need to kind of account for how much stack you have, how much stack your opponent has, and what items are going to be up. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword, and I think that kind of decision on a map like this makes it more interesting when that does happen. Just because it can be quite difficult and methodical in the way that you go about getting benefits out of bunkering in here. So, yeah. So that's about everything for Geotechnic. There's a download in the description if you want to download it. Although given the current state of things, people might not be able to. But I'll provide a download link both to the map itself and to the competitive Duels config and settings changes that we use to play Open Fortress Duels competitively. I think that's about everything. Yeah. See ya.